Air and the ego. That's what we're going to be exploring today. Hi, my name is Nicole Witt, and I'm your miracle mentor. We are making our way through A Course in Miracles. We are currently on chapter 3, section 4, Air and the ego. So let's see what that's all about. The abilities you now possess are only shadows of your real strength. All of your present functions are divided and open to question and doubt. This is because you are not certain how you will use them and are therefore incapable of knowledge. You are also incapable of knowledge because you can still perceive lovelessly. Perception did not exist until the separation introduced degrees, aspects, and intervals. Spirit has no levels, and all conflict arises from the concept of levels. Only the levels of the Trinity are capable of unity. The levels created by the separation cannot but conflict. This is because they are meaningless to each other. So we make levels and all kinds of things in this world, right? I mean, we have different levels of love. We have different intervals of time. We've just divided and divided and divided things into different levels and intervals. But as I've been reading this section for the week, I came to realize that he's also just talking about the intervals of spirit that we see as different people, right? So only the levels of the Trinity are capable of unity. The levels created by the separation, okay, so the separation, the different levels or intervals or aspects cannot but conflict. This is because they are meaningless to each other, because they actually do not exist. They're meaningless. They're something that the ego made. So, and the whole purpose of that is conflict. So there's no way that as long as we see this separation that we're not going to be in conflict. Consciousness, the level of perception, was the first split introduced into the mind after separation, making the mind a perceiver rather than a creator. Consciousness is correctly identified as the domain of the ego. So let's stop here for a second because the spiritual New Age community uses consciousness a lot, the word consciousness, and actually has a different, the same, but the community kind of uses consciousness as the goal. We want to have consciousness. We want to be conscious of what we're doing. It's kind of used as the same as mindfulness or something like that, right? It's this awareness, but we use the word consciousness. And consciousness here, when he's using it, it is that ability to perceive. Like before there was any consciousness, awareness, there was no perception. So he's taking this idea of consciousness and saying that's what you're using to perceive. So of course it's with the ego because perception isn't real. So, but I think we can also get confused because that awareness, where I think the Course would use the term awareness of this consciousness, can also be used. We use that a lot just as the term consciousness. So I think a lot of people get confused what he's talking about there. The ego is a wrong-minded attempt to perceive yourself as you wish to be rather than you are. Okay, as you wish to be, separate, special, not part of God, doing it on your own. And we think, I don't want that, especially if we're spiritual students and we're reading the Course, like, that's not what I want. That's what I want to get away from. But the ego wants that. And it has convinced you that that's what you want at some level, again, or you wouldn't be experiencing it. Yet you can know yourself only as you are, because that is all you can be sure of. Everything else is open to question. So when we're trying to know ourselves as we are not, separated bodies run by an ego, We can't be at peace. It's not possible, because it's only possible to know ourselves as we truly are, which is how God created us as all one, all knowing, and not dealing with any of this perception. The ego is the questioning aspect of the post-separation self, which was made rather than created. It is capable of asking questions, but not of perceiving meaningful answers, because these would involve knowledge and cannot be perceived. The mind is therefore confused, because only one-mindedness can be without confusion, right? So as long as we're not in one-mindedness, as long as there is the belief in separation, it's confusing. We're going to be confused, just as like we're going to be in conflict, because it's not the truth. It's not natural, and it's going against everything that we are. A separated or divided mind must be confused. It is necessarily uncertain about what it is. It has to be in conflict because it is out of accord with itself. This makes its aspects strangers to each other, and this is the essence of the fear-prone condition in which attack is always possible. Remember, this is the one mind separated out, okay, as we see different, separate people. And this makes us strangers to each other, which then makes us fearful and makes us believe in attack. Okay, so these are all the things that come from this division, the separation of the one mind. You have every reason to feel afraid as you perceive yourself. This is why you cannot escape from fear until you realize that you did not and could not create yourself. Okay, that none of this is what God created, and you are what God created, which is the one mind. You can never make your own misperceptions true, and your creation is beyond your own error. Like, thank God. Thank you, God. Like, all of my misperceptions, I can't make them true. No matter how I believe in them, no matter how I suffer about them, no matter how much energy I give them, no matter how much I wallow in them, I cannot make them true. My creation, what I truly am, is beyond my own error. Basically, I can't F it up. That is why you must eventually choose to heal separation. Right-mindedness is not to be confused with the knowing mind, because it is applicable only to right perception. You can be right-minded or wrong-minded, and even this is subject to degrees, clearly demonstrating that knowledge is not involved. The term right-mindedness is properly used as the correction for wrong-mindedness and applies to the state of mind that induces accurate perception. It is miracle-minded because it heals misperception, and this is indeed a miracle in view of how you perceive yourself. So right-mindedness and wrong-mindedness are not one-mindedness, which is the truth. However, if we're going to be using perception, which I still am, I still see things, I still perceive things, then I get to choose, okay, do I want to see with Holy Spirit's help, which is right-mindedness, which is with the miracle, which is choosing love, or do I want to see with wrong-mindedness, which is the ego and error? Perception always involves some misuse of mind because it brings the mind into areas of uncertainty. The mind is very active. When it chooses to be separated, it chooses to perceive. Until then, it wills only to know. Afterwards, it can only choose ambiguously, and the only way out of ambiguity is clear perception. The mind returns to its proper function only when it wills to know. This places it in the service of spirit, where perception is changed. The mind chooses to divide itself when it chooses to make its own levels. but it could not entirely separate itself from spirit, because it is from spirit that it derives its whole power to make or create. Even in miscreation, the mind is affirming its source, or it would merely cease to be. This is impossible because the mind belongs to spirit which God created and which is therefore eternal. So even the fact that we have this misperception, this miscreation of this world, is actually attesting to the fact of how powerful we are, how powerful, how we are part in spirit, because it would not be possible otherwise. So this whole dream that the ego set up to convince us that we are not one with God is actually evidence that we are, because look at this creative ability. I mean, can you even, when I look at every aspect, again, we're using that, right, of the world, all the different intricacies, and I can read this on the internet and go down some wormhole over there, and all of this story and all, I mean, my gosh, so creative. And not creative as, created by God. It's made, but that power to do that, that imagination, that's amazing. So, I grew up thinking I wasn't creative. I wasn't a creative person, but I've now come to realize like the mind is very creative. It's always active. All of this stuff is a testament to actually the power that we have. The ability to perceive made the body possible because you must perceive something and with something. That is why perception involves an exchange or translation, which knowledge does not need. The interpretive function of perception, a distorted form of creation, so your interpretations, your ability to have an interpretation, then permits you to interpret the body as yourself in an attempt to escape from the conflict you have induced. Spirit, which knows, could not be reconciled with this loss of power because it is incapable of darkness. So when we choose to identify ourselves as a body, we've lost all the power of spirit. This makes spirit almost inaccessible to the mind and entirely inaccessible to the body. Thereafter, spirit is perceived as a threat, because light abolishes darkness merely by showing you it is not there. Truth will always overcome error in this way. This cannot be an active process of correction because, as I have already emphasized, knowledge does not do anything. Okay, so that dawning, that all of a sudden that knowing that comes, that new perception, when it feels like it just kind of dawns on you, like we can't strive for it. It's not an active thing. It comes when we're ready and willing. All we can do is be willing, have that will. It can be so it as in correction, spirit, it can be perceived as an attacker, but it cannot attack. What you perceive as its attack is your own vague recognition that knowledge can always be remembered, never having been destroyed. God and his creations remain in surety and therefore know that no miscreation exists. Again, all of this miscreation doesn't really exist. Truth cannot deal with errors that you want. So when we hold on to our misperceptions and our miscreations and we want them and we don't want to give them up, then we're allowed to have them, right? Like they're not taken from us. We have to learn that we don't want them anymore before that they can be given, that truth can turn on the light. I was a man who remembered spirit and its knowledge. Remember, this is Jesus speaking. As a man, I did not attempt to counteract error with knowledge, but to correct error from the bottom up. I demonstrated both the powerlessness of the body and the power of the mind. By uniting my will with that of my Creator, I naturally remembered spirit and its real purpose. I cannot unite your will with God's for you, but I can erase all misperceptions from your mind if you will bring it under my guidance. Again, so Jesus is reminding us, because it's been a few sections now, it's kind of gotten away from earlier in the course. If you remember, if you watch the previous videos, it's a lot about like Jesus is saying, hey, I can help you. Here I am. I can help you. Just ask. I can help you. You can just ask. And then, and in recent sections, we've been more kind of theoretical, but now he's coming back and saying, hey, look, I can help you. I can erase all your misperceptions if you will bring your mind under my guidance. Only your misperceptions stand in your way. Without them, your choice is certain. Sane perception induces sane choosing. I cannot choose for you, but I can help you make your own right choice. Many are called, but few are chosen, should be. All are called, but few choose to listen. Therefore, they do not choose right. The chosen ones are merely those who choose right sooner. Right minds can do this now, and they will find rest unto their souls. God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality. So again, this section was a lot about the differences of perception and knowledge, right-mindedness, wrong-mindedness, one-mindedness, setting up the structure of what he is going to be teaching us. And then a reminder at the end, look, I can help you. I'm here. Just ask, give me your mind, and I will help you heal these miscreations. So next time we're going to look beyond perception. I'll hope you join me then. If you subscribe below, you'll get a notification when it's available. Have a great day. I love you. Bye-bye.